Hello and welcome. I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. President Donald Trump raised the global duty on imports into the United States to 15%, doubling down on his promise to maintain his aggressive tariff policy a day after the Supreme Court ruled much of it illegal. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva urged Donald Trump to treat all countries equally after the US leader imposed a 15% tariff on imports. US envoy Steve Witkoff said that President Donald Trump is questioning why Iran has not capitulated in the face of Washington's military buildup. Russia fired scores of missiles and drones at targets across Ukraine, crashing into energy and rail infrastructure and residential buildings. Pakistan said that it has launched multiple airstrikes targeting militants in neighbouring Afghanistan, where the government reported children were among dozens of people killed and wounded. Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint condemnation of remarks by US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee, who suggested Israel had a biblical right to a vast swath of the Middle East. Greenland does not need medical assistance from other countries, Denmark's defence minister has said after US President Donald Trump claimed he was sending a hospital ship to Greenland. Somaliland is willing to give the United States access to its minerals and military bases, a minister has said, as the breakaway region of Somalia seeks international recognition. And for your top stories this hour, Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen has declined US President Donald Trump's proposal to send a hospital ship to Greenland, a territory Trump has previously expressed interest in acquiring. In a social media post, Nielsen highlighted Greenland's robust public healthcare system, which offers free treatment to citizens, making the hospital ship unnecessary. He also urged the US to engage in direct dialogue rather than making statements on social media. Despite rejecting the proposal, Nielsen emphasized Greenland's openness to continued cooperation with the US. The dispute follows months after tensions over Trump's previous comments about Greenland and a recent diplomatic dialogue between Greenland, Denmark and the US. We are now being joined by Alison Mutler, who is a former AP Borough Chief, joining us from Bucharest. Thank you for joining us here today, Alison, on NewsX World.
Hi.
To what extent might this diplomatic exchange around a hospital ship be symbolic of larger strategic debates over US's influence in the Arctic, including issues of security, mineral resources and NATO relations?
Well, it seems to me that Trump is now trying a softly approach rather than I need to acquire Greenland. He is appealing directly through an offer of medical help to the 57,000 residents of Greenland, saying, I'm going to send a hospital ship, this will help you, treat illnesses, treat people. So that seems like a rather kind offer on the surface, but obviously the idea is it's designed, as George W. Bush used to say, to win hearts and minds for the residents of Greenland, citizens of Greenland, which in fact are Danish citizens, to think, my gosh, okay, the US isn't going to come here with bombs and boots, but it's going to offer us healthcare. In any country, people do want healthcare. They want cheap healthcare, free healthcare if they can get it. But Denmark, Greenland are politely saying we already have free healthcare. The citizens of Greenland are already entitled to that. They're eligible for free healthcare. Thank you very much, but we really don't need this ship. It's surplus to our demands. So I think on the behalf of the Trump administration, it's an aim to win the hearts and mind of Greenlanders by suggesting they'll give them free healthcare, which is something we have to say the US citizens don't enjoy. But they're trying to sort of coddle up, as we would say in English, cozy up to the citizens of Greenland with this nice offer of free healthcare. But they're being politely rebuffed by the Greenland Prime Minister Nielsen saying, thank you very much, but no thank you, because we already do enjoy free healthcare. So I think it is part of the wider strategic war, and it's part of the sort of soft approach to Greenland. It's not, it's not sort of going in there with beating their chests and guns blazing, we're going to take you over. In fact, it's going in with a nice offer. But Greenland is saying very politely but firmly, thank you very much, but we don't need it.
Mm. And it's like you said, that US are now doing a bit of a softer approach. They're going in a bit more lightly after previously saying we are going to take over Greenland. What impact could Greenland's resistance to this US proposal have on Copenhagen's relationship with Washington? Because obviously Greenland have also said, we're okay, thank you for this ship, but we also have Denmark's hospitals if we need to go there. Do you think this, given Denmark's role in Greenland, do you think this could impact their relationship together anymore?
Well, honestly, it's just, from what I've heard, this is the first time light or softly offer. So if a softly offer is made and it's refused in a very polite but firm way, I don't really see how the US, who made this very kind, quote unquote, offer, can actually get angry. It depends what happens afterwards, what else Donald Trump and his administration have up their sleeve. I mean, obviously Donald Trump and his administration would prefer it if Greenland would have said, thank you so much, we really have a need for healthcare, and it's so generous of you, thank you, we really need it. But they haven't. But I don't think the US, if it is trying, as it appears to be, a new softly light approach, they can't afford to get angry when they make a nice, quote unquote, offer. They can't afford to get angry with Greenland refusing it. So we'll have to see what they have up their sleeve next, what other nice soft offers they have, and how that plays out. But I don't think it can really affect relationships, because it seems like the US is now playing nice cop, kind cop, not hard. So I don't think that the US can afford to get angry with Greenland, saying very politely, thank you very much, but we already have free healthcare. But we should look out for what they offer next. What are the Trump administrations, what are their next steps?
And how might the optics of a US military hospital ship being proposed and rebuffed affect perceptions among other Arctic Council members and global powers like Russia and China that are increasingly active in the region?
Well, I think they will be looking at this. What is this offer? What does it signify? What is underneath? Is the US really, prepared to go in at that level of detail? So I think it won't be just looked by the government of Copenhagen or the Greenland, the nuke government, but it will be looked at a wider scale. What it does show is that the US is very determined, I think, to play a role in the future of Greenland. We can say that. We're not, as I said, we're not just talking about, acquiring the territory, which seems at the moment to be off the table. But we are talking about, if they are offering healthcare, that does show a long-term, a deep interest in the country. And so I think that Russia and China will be looking at this seriously. It does show that the US has a long-term, deep interest in Greenland and its future, for sure.
Thank you. Alison, please don't go too far, as I will be back with you very shortly. A senior European Union lawmaker has proposed on postponing a vote on the EU-US trade deal that had been planned for this week, and arguing that the terms and legal basis on which the trade deal was struck had changed. The US Supreme Court struck down President Donald Trump's global tariffs, prompting Trump to put in place a temporary tariff of 10%, which he hiked to 15%. Bernd Lange, member of EU Parliament, has said that pure tariff chaos from the US administration. No one can make sense of it anymore and only opens questions and growing uncertainty for the EU and other US trading partners. We are now being rejoined by Alison Mutler. Thank you for joining us back here on NewsX World. Given the recent upheaval in US tariff policy, going from what happened with the Supreme Court to Trump putting 10% and now 15%, what does the EU's expectation that the United States will honour the terms of the existing trade deal reveal about European confidence in Washington's commitment to stable trade relations? And also, how are these talks going to go with the EU so they can bring all these things forward to Trump?
Well, I mean, after Friday's 6-3, I think, ruling by the Supreme Court, this was obviously a blow to Donald Trump, and he's reacted by slapping on this 10% and now 15%. It's rather chaotic, and I think the EU is very right to think, what is this? How does this affect us? What's happening? And we can't just go ahead with a deal when we don't know what the terms are. So it does affect, number one, it affects America's credibility, because here you have a president proposing one thing and then the Supreme Court striking that down. And so it's quite fair that the EU, which is a 27 bloc union, 27 member union, will be wondering, how does this affect our deal? And so it'd be rather foolish to go ahead with it. I mean, the EU is quite rightly saying they need clarification what is happening, because it does seem that Donald Trump behaved in a reactive manner, because obviously it was a political blow to him that the Supreme Court, which is supposed to be stacked with conservative judges, did strike down his deal and say it was illegal, and therefore he reacted. And I think it's quite fair for US trading partners around the world to wonder, we've got to step back and we've got to reassess. We've got to see what actually is going to happen, because it's quite unclear. Things are changing from one day to the other. It's not in the slightest. We can't rely on this. It's not a reliable. It's not reliable what's coming out of the United States, and they need some stability and some certainty about what the rules are, because they seem to be, at this moment, changing from day to day. So there's too much volatility, and they want to step back and see what actually finally emerges.
And what economic sectors within the EU are most at risk from current tariff tensions with the United States? And how could these pressures influence the EU's negotiating strategy going forward?
I mean, you have the auto sector, you have the steel sector, which do have higher tariffs. I mean, there are other areas as well. So yes, it will affect what happens, what level of tariffs that will happen. But I think the EU wants some level of certainty, and and at the moment their current agreement is very lopsided in favour of the United States, and that's precisely because the EU did not want a trade war with the United States, so they allowed the United States to slap on higher tariffs than the EU would get from the US, which I think are close to zero. But that was unfair and lopsided and unbalanced. It's precisely because, as I said, that the EU didn't want a trade war with the United States, because it's a very important trade partner for the United States, both ways. It's very important. The United States, the EU is a very important trade deal with auto, with steel, with other products. And the US is a very important trade partner for the EU. So even though there are these disagreements because of Trump, because of tariffs, they don't want to actually fall out and not become partners, because the markets are too big on both sides.
Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us here today on NewsX World. According to a senior US official, US negotiators are preparing for another round of talks with Iran in Geneva on Friday, contingent on receiving a detailed Iranian proposal for a nuclear deal within the next 48 hours. President Trump's administration sees this diplomatic push as a final opportunity before possibly launching a large-scale US-Israeli military operation targeting Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. US envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who have urged Trump to give diplomacy a chance, plan to be in Geneva on February the 27th if Iran sends its proposal early this week. The US and Iran may also discuss the potential for an interim agreement before finalising a nuclear deal. We are now being joined by Robinder Sachdev, who is an international affairs expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. How might diverging views on sanctions relief and enrichment rights are key sticking points in these negotiations? How are these going to affect the prospect of these talks, leading to a meaningful interim deal or long-term agreement?
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you. Yeah, sure. The nuts and bolts are being discussed regarding nuclear matters, regarding Iran's ballistic missile program, and also regarding Iran's support to its so-called quote-unquote proxies, the Houthis and Hezbollahs, etc. But I think if we were to look in a bigger picture, there could be perhaps no better time, or let's put it the other way around. Right now is the opportune time for Israel and the US to take action against Iran. One. Secondly, the regime within Iran has been weakened on multiple counts. The Gaza conflict, the decimation of the Hamas, the Hezbollahs, Houthis somewhat cut down to size, etc. And plus the Israeli and American attacks on Iran, and then within Iran, the public opinion against the regime. We don't know to what extent, but to a good extent, it seems. So a combination of these factors, if seen from the Tel Aviv or Washington DC prism, is the right time to kind of give just a nudge or as heavy impact to destabilize and remove this regime. Nothing could be better than this timing overall. One. Secondly, Netanyahu has, of course, made it his life's mission to ensure that Iran would never get any nuclear capability forever, so that he can ensure the safety and security of Israel and Israeli citizens for the next century. And Netanyahu is now at a certain age. So Netanyahu would want to very much see a conclusion, if not a conclusion, a decisive blow to Iran. The US is kind of going along. The US understands. I think the variable all of these guys are looking out as or estimating is that what could be the reaction that and the capability of Iran to react. Now, that all set aside, with perspective to the American administration, in my mind, there's a term, TACO, which has been often used in Wall Street in London, that Trump always chickens out. Yes, he does sometimes and oftentimes. But I look at TACO acronym in a different way. Trump always carries on. So what we can expect is that America will carry on. Because what they're realizing is that the state of Iran is vulnerable. Even if they don't make an all-out attack, one more big hit, a concentrated hit over 24 hours, 48 hours, killing some senior Iranian officials. Apparently, they've drawn up lists of, eliminating the entire, the Ayatollah regime itself. Some of that, some of the other, fine, another blow. And within Iran, then there are forces erupting which are anti this regime. So the question to my mind is that it seems an attack is imminent. If not now, then, there are multiple dimensions, but an attack is imminent. The question is what scale of this attack? And then, whatever be the scale of attack, how Iran retaliates.
Thank you, Robinder, but please don't go too far, as we will be joining back very shortly. Pakistan's military has reportedly killed more than 80 militants in airstrikes carried out on targets in Afghanistan. The strikes are said to have targeted militant groups operating along the Afghan-Pakistani border. The airstrikes come amid heightened tensions in the region, with both Pakistan and Afghanistan accusing each other of harbouring insurgents. The Pakistani military has been conducting operations to combat militants in the broader regions, while Afghanistan's government has condemned these attacks, calling them violations of its sovereignty. We are now being joined again by Rabinder Sachdev. Thank you for joining us back here on NewsX World. Thank you. Given that Afghanistan accuses Pakistan of violating its sovereignty and international law, what are the potential implications for regional stability and international norms if such cross-border military actions become more frequent?
Well, that's a big question you're asking, but let's keep that aside for the time being, if you will allow me. I think what is happening is that Pakistan sees this period, this time, as a window of opportunity to go aggressive against Afghanistan. They do have a dispute on the border, which is known, and there are issues of international law, as you very well point out. But as of now, at present, I think Pakistan sees this as an opportunity, a window of time to go after Afghanistan and not draw international opprobrium or international condemnation of what Pakistan is doing. That is one, because nations are going to war across borders to eliminate radicalization with respect to the nation itself. That's one. Second, I think Pakistan will not mind this conflict escalating, because what it would then next want is that this conflict escalates, and then Pakistan brings this conflict to Donald Trump and says to Donald Trump, you're invited to broker a peace agreement. And in terms of the peace agreement, of course, Pakistan will agree to peace. Afghanistan is a minor player. Pakistan is looking to enable one more victory or a feather in cap for Trump for bringing peace on one other border conflict situation.
Thank you so much, Rabinder Sachdev, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. Ukrainian police have detained a 33-year-old woman in connection with a deadly explosion in Lviv. Authorities released CCTV footage showing the woman suspected of planting improvised explosive devices in trash bins, which led to the blast. The explosion killed a 23-year-old police officer and injured 25 others. Officials claim the suspect was acting on instructions from a Russian handler. The arrest follows ongoing investigations into the attack, which has raised concerns about the increasing use of such devices in the region. The arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor on February the 19th, 2026 has marked a definitive and historic collapse of royal immunity. The event, which occurred on his 66th birthday, has not only rocked the British monarchy, but ignited a wave of global activism, most notably a high-stakes demonstration at the Louvre Museum in Paris. The stunt comes as when protesters bypassed security to hang a large photograph of the former royal in one of the Louvre's central galleries. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.